A couple of questions for my dear friend Alan Fields. Now, in your career, you've shared the stage with many, many great guitar players. Of course, you mentioned Steve Vai, Ritchie Kotzen. There's Paul Gilbert, of course, Michael Schenker, Tony MacAlpine, Bumblefoot. Give us some guitar players, past, present, that you would still like to work with. Who would you like to share the stage with?
Well, sadly, we lost him, and I don't think I'm qualified either. Paco de Lucia would have been pretty much the tops on my list. Would be great. Also, John McLaughlin. I was a big Mahavishnu fan, a big Billy Cobham fan too. There's a lot of guitar players that of course I've been very honored and grateful to work with. But I'm a drummer guy, and I watched that drums, and I saw Billy Cobham in Dreams before Mahavishnu with the Brecker Brothers on horns. And he blew our minds for $1.50 at University of Buffalo. I don't know, it must have been 1969 or 70, I don't know. But what a mind-blowing player. And playing with Dennis Chambers also has just changed my life for the better in so many ways. Just to know him, and what an incredible musician. So yeah, but I've been lucky to play with great guitarists. And I like to work with the guitarists, but I also want to do what they need to do. Like if I'm playing, in the past when I played with Steve Vai, I remove myself from the equation and say, what does he want? How does he want it? Let me do it that way, because it's his name. So let me do what that is, and forget yourself and just do how Steve wants it. And I love doing that. It actually takes a burden off of you to have to be continuously creative. Now you just got to play accurately and righteously what he wants, and make him happy. Make it so he doesn't even think of the bass while he's doing his thing. He is free, and I want to provide that freedom and buy a big foundation that's 18 inches of steel reinforced concrete underneath him. Now we're on tour out with Mr. Big, and Paul Gilbert is playing. And I make sure there's big, giant, fat notes underneath him when he's soloing. Get way the heck out of the way, and because I want to hear him too, on top of me wanting the audience to hear him. So bass being the primarily a supportive instrument. Primarily, of course, anyone would admit that. I believe it does its own thing sometimes too. Sometimes it's really woven into improvisation. The one problem I have sometimes with some guitarists that if you move at all, they get thrown off because they can't play over changes. So even though we're still in the key of E minor, if I do some movement in E minor, they're completely lost. And I said, no, you're still in E minor. Keep playing in that key. I'm going to move around. When I move a note, if you listen to Bach, when he moves his left hand, it changes to what it sounds like on the right hand, even though it's still the same notes. Those root notes moving create that counterpoint, and that is an essential thing of music and harmony. So sometimes, depending on the guitarist, I'll move around all over the place underneath them, within reason, of course, and give them the opportunity to just stay where you are, move where you want to go. I'll follow you. I'll instinctively get the heck out of the way when you need me to, and just lock in with the drummer only. And then I'll jump in when it's time. And then we get a interchange and improvisation. And again, my previous example of Bach, the right hand and the left hand, and the right hand. Something happens. You hit one note, hit another note. That first note changes. Now you got a harmony between the two, which creates a third tone in a way.
Right.
So when you can do that as a bass player, I think it leads to more harmonic complexity in a good way. And but sometimes Cliff Williams in AC/DC is a genius. He's pounding that beautiful open E string while Angus is doing his thing, and it's glorious and it's amazing. Yeah. Or Ian Hill from Judas Priest, just brilliant, rock solid, holds the whole band together. So yeah, I've been lucky to play with some great guitar players, and I have a lot of very deep friendships with many of them as well. And when we work together, it seems to go quite well.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned. Go ahead.
I'm watching the drummer.
Oh, well, you mentioned you're a drummer guy. Now, Alan also pointed out that you and Mike Portnoy have two amazing bands, but they're completely different. Winery Dogs and Sons of Apollo. So tell me about making that. How did you guys come to form two different bands like that?
Well, the Winery Dogs is more of a straight up rock with a lot of improvisational stuff.
Right.
Where Sons of Apollo is more arranged, progressive stuff that have parts that are the same, built up more like a classical, if you will, and progressive thing. So there's not as much free form moving in Sons of Apollo, where there is a lot of that in Winery Dogs. But for me, I just watch the drummer like a hawk, and and it happens with a lot of drummers. We get this ESP thing going on. I remember one time we're setting up in a little club to do a jam, and Ray Lugier, the drummer from Korn, a dear friend of mine, we play together a lot. We had a production company together, and I got my back to him, and I'm plugging into the little amp, and the lights are down. We're gonna do a jam, and Ray is behind me. Out of nowhere, Ray just took his bass drum and went whoosh. At the exact moment I went, and it was exactly, and we spun around and looked at each other like, how did you know? I don't know, how did you know? So we have this kind of ESP thing. So when a drummer goes, chicka-da-ba-ba-da-doo-ba-ba, I'm playing chicka-da-ba-ba-ba-doo-ba-ba. Same thing along with it. So you can really incorporate motion in the bass into a usable and not cluttery thing if you're locked in with the drums. And that's just such a huge thing. Young players, I tell them all the time, start on that bass drum. When he hits a bass drum, you play a note with each hit. And the same little accents and thing, watch that. Then later on, if you want to do it, what I'll do is I'll play a lower octave is the bass drum, and the same note in upper octave is the snare drum. A la My Sharona do. But look at that! Look at how there's a huge hit, and how many songs like that there were where that bass and drums were together. Give Me Some Love, my Spencer Davis group, same thing. There are many, many examples of that. And then if you want to get adventurous, then you bring the toms in as well, or whatever fills they do, and play along with those. So again, that's more my thing is drums than it is guitar. But guitar is an instrument that I like to find myself in a position to back up, to give a foundation to.
As needed, right, the right approach. And I would imagine that going from Winery Dogs to Sons of Apollo is just another day at the office for you. You approach each one the same, just giving the music what it needs, serving the music.
Fortunately, I grew up at a time when our set list was wild, all copy tunes, White Punks on Dope, to King Crimson Schizoid Man, to Three Dog Night, Joy to the World, or It's For You, Grand Funk Railroad, all this stuff, King Crimson Red, a broad array of styles. Because in a bar, when you're playing in a copy band, who knows who's coming to the door? Somebody's going to want to hear something a little more complex. Somebody just wants to sing along to Jeremiah Was a Bullfrog, was a good friend of mine. It was good training for me to get in a situation where I can jump from genre to genre, somewhat convincingly, I hope, and still manage to stay on my feet.